Hi, my name is Diane Schuster, and you're watching one of a series of videos that demonstrate the capabilities of COZYROC SSIS Plus, which is a software suite of tasks and components for SQL Server integration services. These demonstrations were built using SQL Server Integration Services 2005. The COZYROC tasks and components are available for SQL Server Integration Services 2005, 2008, 2008 R2, 2012, and 2014 in both 32-bit and 64-bit editions. For more information, please visit www.cozyroc.com. In this video, we're going to talk about the Lookup Plus component, which you can use to perform lookups from various sources such as a SQL Server table, a SQL query, or an SSIS object variable containing a record set, data set, or iDictionary interface object. Using COZYROC's Lookup Plus component, it's easy to perform multiple lookups and to handle lookups where the lookup key column is null or where there is no match for the lookup key column at all. This component comes in a package of tasks and components called SSIS Plus that complements the standard SSIS. In this demonstration, I will show you how to perform the same operation, first using the standard lookup component that comes with SSIS, and then using COZYROC's Lookup Plus component. Now here are the basic requirements of our package. We're going to be looking up values from multiple reference tables. We actually have two of them. And based on a column called Destination Country, we're going to look up the ID and the tax rate for that country. And then from another reference table, we're going to look up the commodity price for various commodities. And if we have an error with any of the rows because the key that we're using to do the lookup is either null or there's no match, then we want to put a certain value in the field or in the column for the value we would have looked up from that reference table. So we'd put a 0 if it was null, and we'll put a -1 if there was no match. Now I'm going to quickly go through a package that I created using the standard lookup component that comes with SSIS. The first component here is our OLEDB source, where we're reading in the table that I showed a minute ago, which contains columns for the date, the commodity, and the destination country. Now we're going to take a look at our first copy of the lookup component, and again this is the one that comes standard with SSIS, and we are using the countries table, and we're using the destination country from the source to look up the country ID and the tax rate. And now we'll go in to configure the error output, and as you can see I've set it up so that it redirects the row for any type of error that it encounters. So now I have all of the errors going to this conditional split component, and in here I separate them based on whether it's a null error or a no match error. And now we use the derived column transformation component to actually write 0 to the two columns for the null situation. We handle the no match error with another derived column component, and here you can see we write a -1 in the column for the country ID and the tax rate. Now we use the union all transformation component to combine the outputs from all of the other components. Now we need to do it all again, starting with the lookup component through the union all component, and this time we're doing it to look up the commodity prices from the commodity prices table. The final step is to write the results to our lookup result table using the OLEDB destination. Here's what the results look like in our lookup result table from executing this package, and we'll scroll down to the bottom so you can see the two error records which were put at the bottom of the input, so it's been reordered. And you can see the 49th record has a null destination country, so we have zeros in the two columns we were pulling from the reference table based on country, and then the 50th record had palladium misspelled, so it did not match anything in the commodity prices table, and we have a -1 in the commodity price column there. And again, note that the records are now out of order from the order that they were read in from the source. Now I'm going to show you how to create a package that does the same thing using COZYROC's Lookup Plus component, and you'll see that it's much simpler to create the package, and we leave the records in the same order as they were in the input. In other words, the records with errors will appear where they were in the input. They will not appear at the end in our results table. The first thing we need to do is install the Lookup Plus component in our toolbox. So we right mouse click and we click on Choose Items. And then we go to SSIS Data Flow Items. And we scroll down until we find the Lookup Plus component from COZYROC. And there you can see it is COZYROC's component. Click OK, and now you can see it appears in our toolbox. Now we'll set up the connection manager for the SQL Server database that contains all of the tables we'll be using in this package. Now we'll go find the OLEDB source and drag it onto our canvas. And we're going to set it up to read our input data. So we'll change the name to Read Input Table. And now we choose the table that contains our source data. We'll take a quick preview, and there's the data I showed you earlier. So we'll close that and go take a look at the columns, and there it shows the 3 columns. So we're done with that. And now we're going to use our Lookup Plus component. So we'll connect the green arrow from our input. Now we'll go in and configure this component. And first we select the column from our input source that we'll be using to perform the lookup, and that's destination country. And now we need to set up the reference table that we'll be using, and we'll use the same connection manager we already set up. And we'll choose the correct table, which is called countries. And we'll be using a column called country in the reference table, and we're going to actually look up the ID and tax rate, but we have to do that in 2 separate steps. So this time we're going to choose ID. And you can see that we've already set it up to handle the error situations. If we have a null column, we're going to put in a 0 for the ID. And if we have a no match for the column we're doing the lookup for, which is country, we'll put a -1 there. That was easy. And again, we're going to look up the tax rate now using the destination country again from the input source, and we'll use the same reference table. So we'll set up the connection manager and choose the countries table. And again, we're using country as the name of the column in that reference table, and this time we choose tax rate for the value that we're pulling from the reference table. And now we're going to use a different field, the commodity column from our input source, and now we have to set up a different table from using the same connection manager, and this time the table is called commodity prices. That's our reference table, and the name of the column in that reference table is commodity, and the column that we're pulling from the table is called price. And now we're all done, and all the error situations are handled already. Now we're going to use the OLEDB destination component so that we can write the results of all of our lookups to a SQL Server table. And again, we use the same connection manager, and we choose the table called Lookup Result Table. And we'll take a look, and there you can see all of the columns from the source as well as the ones that we have looked up from 2 different reference tables. And we'll go take a look at the mappings of the columns, and it looks like we're going to need to map a couple of them manually. So we map ID to country ID, and we map price to commodity price. And we're done with that, and so now we're ready to execute. And I just want to take a moment to point out that we used 3 components in this package versus 12 components in the previous package to do the same thing. We have success, so we'll stop debugging. We'll take a quick look at the execution results. And there we wrote our 50 rows from the input into the output with our added columns. Now we'll take a look at our lookup result table. And there you can see we have the null country. And so we have zeros in both the country ID and the tax rate columns. And now we'll find the row that has the commodity that's misspelled, Palladium is misspelled, and so there was no match, so we put a -1 in the commodity price for that row. In this demonstration, I showed you how easy it is to use the Lookup Plus component to perform lookups from various sources, such as a SQL Server table and an SSIS object variable. Using COZYROC's Lookup Plus component, it's easy to perform multiple lookups and to handle lookups where the lookup key column is null or where there is no match for the lookup key column at all. I showed you how to perform the same operation, first using the standard lookup component that comes with SSIS, and then using COZYROC's Lookup Plus component. This component comes in a package of tasks and components called SSIS Plus that complements the standard SSIS. And that concludes this demo.